Don't forget to like and subscribe to follow good stories. Upon hearing this, Ian felt an overwhelming sense of frustration. He perceived her disdain, believing that she yearned for a man who would adore her unconditionally, hence her continual rejection and departure. Such behavior would at least spare him some semblance of dignity. He no longer wished to become a victim of her fleeting whims. Regardless of what she might say now, he remained steadfast in his decision to enlist. Madelyn stood beneath the cold, rainy sky, her heart heavy with sorrow as she recalled the heartbreaking images of him. Why had she come here? Why did she think this man would heed her call? Yet, she couldn't allow things to proceed as they were. She couldn't let him leave in such a manner. Suddenly, a strange noise prompted Madelyn to turn her head. Rushing towards her, she nearly exhausted herself trying to hold him back. Ian frowned slightly at her perplexing actions, but within a second, his jade-green eyes widened in surprise as he witnessed Madelyn attempting to hold back her tears, looking utterly pitiful. "Please don't go," she pleaded softly. His heart softened, yet her enigmatic behavior left him bewildered. Even though she seemed to care deeply for him, he couldn't comprehend why she was preventing him to such an extent. Previously, she had accused him of arrogance, deeming a stubborn wife incompatible with him. "I hope you find someone better than me," he thought to himself. Madelyn Renfield was filled with profound disappointment. In the end, she couldn't alter the cruel fate that awaited him. Would there be another chance? One day, while searching for employment in the newspaper, she stumbled upon the list of casualties from a recent battle. Furrowing her brows as she read, she exhaled a long, relieved breath, only to suddenly realize something was amiss. Surely, Ian wouldn't perish. After all, he had returned from his past life. Perhaps she shouldn't leave his treatment solely to Dr. Allington. It might be the most advanced therapy available, but his condition worsened. If Ian were to return injured again, she needed to find another way. As she pondered, a knock sounded at the door. A letter had arrived for her. Upon opening it, she was astonished to find it was a handwritten note from Isabel. It turned out that Isabel wished to transform Nottingham Manor into a military hospital, a dream Madelyn had harbored amidst these tumultuous times. Despite Mrs. Nottingham's objections, Isabel was resolute in her intentions and was currently recruiting volunteers eager to become nurses to care for the wounded. Everyone would have a place to stay, meals to eat even if the food was meager, and wages to earn. Without hesitation, Madelyn accepted the offer. "Hello, Madelyn. I'm so glad you've arrived." Isabel greeted her with a gentle smile as she ushered her inside. "You're the first to join us, Madelyn." Madelyn was taken aback. "Oh, really?" she responded, slightly surprised. Isabel chuckled warmly. "You see, I'm not exactly a high society figure, and I had to consider the situation between you and my brother. I didn't want you to bring up those matters and make things awkward, but it's all right." She looked genuinely excited. "This will be your room, Madelyn. It was once the servants' quarters, so the rooms are a bit cramped. I've converted the larger guest rooms into triage stations. Additionally, I've let the servants rest to cut costs, so you'll need to tidy up your room yourself." "No problem at all, Isabel. I actually love this room. It feels so bright and cheerful," Madelyn replied. Isabel beamed inwardly. "That's wonderful. My room is next door." Madelyn smiled brightly. "Great. Take a look around my new room. This will be your residence for the time being. It's fortunate to have both work and accommodation." Meanwhile, Chef Cook Carrot was swiftly chopping carrots. Upon witnessing Isabel's frantic chopping, he was horrified. "Miss, that's dangerous. Let me handle it." But Isabel paid him no mind, continuing to smash the pile of carrots. "We're in a time of war. I can't sit idly by while you do everything. Let him handle it," she insisted. The chef became even more alarmed. "I understand, but miss, please be careful." The butler looked as though he wanted to implore Madelyn for help, but she remained silent, uncertain of how to advise the frazzled lady. After a moment, Madelyn spoke up. "Miss Isabel?" Upon hearing her name, Isabel turned her head, her eyes gleaming with excitement as if she had discovered a dazzling treasure, making Madelyn feel both amused and helpless. In the end, she had no choice but to lend a hand. The two of them could only cry out in despair at the sight. "Yes, Madelyn? The nurse instructor will be arriving shortly. We're about to become nurses," Isabel announced. A short while later, the instructor Isabel had mentioned arrived. "I am Mrs. Osborne. I will oversee your training to become nurses," she introduced herself. First, you must understand that becoming a nurse cannot be achieved in such a short time. It's best to give up the idea of becoming Florence Nightingale overnight. Additionally, there are numerous challenges that noble ladies like yourselves will face, such as dealing with blood, organs, and the anguished cries of young warriors in pain. These are just a few of the difficulties. However, the doors will always remain open for those who have the courage to step forward. By overcoming these initial hardships and being diligent learners, this work will be deeply rewarding. Now, let's begin, she continued. Thus, the girls gradually became accustomed to administering injections and bandagging patients, dedicating 10 hours each day to learning all aspects of nursing. They spent their remaining time learning to cook and prepare daily meals. Although their bodies were weary, Madelyn's heart was full and happier than in her previous life, which had been marked by dark and lonely years. Slowly, those shadows faded, replaced by joy and hearty laughter each day, surrounded by friends and colleagues. 2 months had passed. Don't work yourself too hard, Madelyn, Isabel advised. Madelyn was engrossed in her duties. I need to stay busy to keep my mind from wandering, Isabel. Indeed, Isabel sighed. With this hectic schedule, I sometimes forget about the overwhelming responsibility of managing an entire military hospital or worrying about my two brothers. Madelyn teased. Has anyone told you that you resemble Mr. Nottingham? Isabel frowned slightly. Which Mr. Nottingham are you referring to, Miss Madelyn? Ian, of course. The two comforted each other, knowing that once a decision was made, they would see it through to the end. You are a strong-willed woman, and I must thank you for changing my life, Madelyn added. So, don't be afraid. Isabel blushed, her cheeks turning red as she nervously whispered her gratitude. Are you worried about him? Madelyn immediately froze. And no, of course not, Isabel. Why then did you come here that day, despite the heavy rain, to prevent him from enlisting? Isabel persisted, not letting it go. She always glanced toward his room whenever she stood there. Madelyn wanted to defend herself, but found no words. Please, don't be troubled anymore. Why didn't you write him a letter? It only takes 3 days to reach him. She remained silent, stiffly thanking Isabel. But it's not that I'm worried about him, she insisted. Isabel looked incredulous. Are you sure about that, Madelyn? Before long, they had to leave and continue their duties. At the front lines, a soldier was hastily running towards a lieutenant's tent. Lieutenant Nottingham, I have a letter for you. Greetings, I am Madelyn Renfield. Autumn is nearing its end. I hope this letter does not cause you any inconvenience. Perhaps you'll find rest more meaningful than reading this letter. I believe there will come a day when we can discuss what has transpired between us. But for now, I send this letter in case there is no other opportunity. Oh dear, are you reading it too, Ian? He glanced over to see him two close friends standing nearby. The weather has turned to winter. Remember to dress warmly and keep the fire away from the barrels. I did read an article about soldiers who, due to negligence, caused unfortunate accidents, Madelyn added. George casually puffed on his cigar, mocking the scrap of paper before it even became a formal document. Surprised? Are you? He teased. Ian snatched the cigar from his friend's hand, his expression stern. How many times have I told you to be careful with fire, George? He admonished. At that moment, George remembered. Oh right, we're near the fuel depot. We need to be extra cautious. George, Lieutenant Nottingham's woman is always reminding us about that, isn't she? Ian frowned slightly. But you keep reading that letter every day, even though I've told you she's not my girl anymore. With my experience as a married man, I can assure you it's true. Ian could only sigh, his cheeks flushing red from his friend's remarks. Those two names, she's just a woman who keeps bothering me. Enough, George. He whistled and sighed enviously. I wish someone would write to me like that, his friend teased. That's karma from those persistent types. Don't be too greedy. Laughter echoed throughout the camp. Somehow, Ian couldn't help but worry about him. I know I have no right to say that, but I still hope you return safely. If you want to joke about this letter, that's fine. I hope you can overlook my somewhat foolish reminders and stay safe. I'm not advising you out of pity. Best regards, Madelyn. Another day, Madelyn received a letter from the front lines addressed to Miss Madelyn Renfield. A letter sent in a green envelope wouldn't be censored. Using her superior officer to send such a letter was quite laughable, wasn't it? She pondered the strange things the young woman had said on that rainy night, begging her not to enlist because she would lose everything, while everyone else was volunteering to fight. Perhaps that's why she decided to be honest in this letter. She told her family and friends that everything was fine. Madelyn, Isabel called out urgently. We have our first patient. Hurry up. Madelyn snapped out of her daydream in the treatment room. The agonizing screams of a soldier startled everyone. The truth was, things were worse than they seemed. They realized that in this place, they were nothing more than flesh and bones. But don't worry, Madelyn. Once the real battle begins, even worse things will happen. We'll probably have to earn more victories before we can go home. That way, she won't mock us. Just kidding. After struggling with the first patient, Madelyn's temples throbbed with pain. The life of a wartime nurse was no easy feat. She reread the letter he had written, but her desire to learn more about her was genuine. Miss Madelyn Renfield, she began her letter. Sincerely, Ian Nottingham. I also need to reply to your letter, don't I? Madelyn began to write. I also want to learn more about you, sir. You're persistent. Let me introduce myself first. My hair is blonde. Upon reading this, Ian couldn't help but burst into laughter. I don't like feeling lonely, but having a book would certainly help, he wrote in his reply. I've also written back. If you enjoy reading so much, feel free to use my letterbox. I hope there will be books and authors you love. You also want to know about me, right? My name is Ian Nottingham, currently a soldier. I have something I want to ask you. You've volunteered to help Isabel with the challenging mission she's undertaken. I don't mean to discourage you, but isn't that quite difficult? I just hope you don't overwork yourself. Isabel and Mrs. Nottingham are even busier than I am. Thank you for taking care of me, sir. But hearing you say that, Isabel must have your permission, right? To be honest, who else has the authority to give her permission? Your books are wonderful. When you return, I'll pay you back. Ian smiled and murmured about repaying his debts to her, causing his cheeks to flush red as a blinding light flashed, signaling imminent danger. Instinctively, Ian turned around, his once emerald green eyes now ablaze with flames, followed by a series of loud explosions. Miss Madelyn Renfield, we need to clarify something with her from the very beginning, Ian said. Isabel never even sought my consent. It's simply that I didn't want to hinder the young lady, because her intentions are entirely noble. I want to ensure that when I return, I will receive the fee for borrowing the books, but I fear that might not be possible. For her, upon my return, she will see that this war shows no signs of ending. Moreover, I wish to ask her a question that I might never have the chance to. Does she enjoy opera at Nottingham Manor? Madelyn read the letter from Ian once more. Perhaps we should attend the opera together instead of watching that film, she mused. She settled at her desk and began to pen a reply. I don't know if you enjoy opera, sir, but I do appreciate it very much, though I seldom have the opportunity to indulge. Time has slipped away. 2 years had passed since that fateful night. As Madelyn was engrossed in her writing, a knock echoed at the door. Haven't you gone to bed yet? She wondered. It was Isabel. Her once raven black hair had grown significantly longer. As she took a seat, her fiery temperament resurfaced. What are these things? And whiskey again? Madelyn sighed. 2 years have flown by like a flash. Time has passed swiftly. You've been working tirelessly day and night. Isabel, do we have more patients now? Madelyn inquired. Yes, everything is progressing well, and our hospital is expanding further. My relatives are investing substantial funds here, likely hoping to gain some prestige, Isabel responded. Madelyn, I want to ask you something straightforward. Have you found someone to love? Isabel asked. Madelyn felt her heart shatter. Love? What? Isabel, observing her various expressions, found it amusing. I mean, aside from my brother, of course, she teased, her cheeks turning crimson. No, I don't, Isabel exclaimed. Oh, so my brother is your only one? Madelyn dismissed the notion. I didn't mean that. Isabel pondered for a moment. Do you know that Ian only sent me a postcard? He merely wrote a few sentences like everything is still fine. Remember to take good care of your mother. He's a very calculating person. He wouldn't do anything that doesn't benefit himself. Yet now, he's exchanging letters with a girl who has already rejected his marriage proposal. I can't believe it stops there, Madelyn replied, bewildered. He just needs some comfort in difficult times. Isabel sipped her tea and responded. Just think of it that way. What about you? Every time his letter arrives late, you sigh and can't concentrate on your work. Madelyn stammered. It's just friendship. And I also have male friends. Isabel nodded thoughtfully. I'm sure you understand. Isabel contemplated. Do you want to hear a secret from me? Once the war ends, I will live with the person I love. Ian smiled and murmured about repaying his debts to her, causing his cheeks to flush red. Madelyn's cheeks flushed rosy as she thought of such a romantic scene. And then I will pursue a career based on all that I've learned here. What about you, Madelyn? Are you still going to write letters to him when the war ends? At the battlefield, Ian was advising a lieutenant about the necessary precautions around the camp. Suddenly, a shout from someone drew his attention. Please wake up, Antonio. The military ambulance is coming right away. His shoes were torn, with his toes sticking out, while a swarm of mice scurried, awaiting an opportunity to gnaw. Caught off guard by this sight, Ian instinctively shielded himself. The soldiers' faces appeared dazed and despondent. Some were gravely injured, unable to tend to their wounds properly, while panic ensued and dead bodies were overrun by FLIs. Ian, Lieutenant, sir, he commanded. Yes, sir. We need to clear all the personal belongings of these fallen soldiers and carry their bodies out of the trench, the lieutenant responded. If we leave them here, the plague will spread to the healthy soldiers, Ian ordered firmly. He stamped his heavy footsteps and departed. Miss Renfield, we haven't written to her in a long time. Now, everything seems to be in order, Isabel exclaimed. The wooden shutters had been banged in anger by a soldier, making it impossible for Ian to restrain himself as he witnessed the soldiers around him suffering so. I apologize, he said. Now, I can't pray for her to live peacefully and happily where she is. On a sunny day, Madelyn would take patients outside to breathe fresh air. During these walks, I think if I could smoke a cigarette, the pain would be lessened. Madelyn sighed, her eyes wide open as she opened a pack of cigarettes. Don't tell anyone, okay? The soldier was overjoyed. Hooray! Why are you being so kind to me? It must be because I'm handsome, right? Madelyn forced a smile. Maybe it's because you're about to be discharged, she replied. He's laughing heartily. Ha, ha. If my legs weren't like this, I would have dated you already. I know you have a man at war, don't you? I saw you brighten up when Alter arrived for you. Madelyn embraced. He's not my man. But you like him, don't you? No, not exactly. Madelyn tried to explain gently. Rather, I empathize with him. We've known each other for quite a while. So, when that soldier hears it, he might feel sad. Probably not, she continued, her cheeks flushing slightly. He hasn't responded to me in a long time. The soldier became pensive. I understand. War zones are places where many never return. There are young men with dreams and aspirations, the devoted son and dutiful lover. All those hopes are stolen by the battlefield. It is something precious. Maybe he can't reply to your letters, but those letters are his beacon of faith to survive. Life is so cruel. I can't bear it anymore. So please, don't give me false hopes. Suddenly, Isabel appeared. Madelyn, we have a new patient now, she said. Dear sir, it's been a very long time since I've received a letter from you. But no worries, I don't blame you. Things must be chaotic over there. I can't even begin to imagine the hardships you've been through. Are you keeping yourself clean? I hope my reminder as a nurse will help you stay mindful. In the hospital room, Madelyn suddenly shuddered as she saw someone before her, wrapped in bandages from severe burns all over his body. He trembled uncontrollably, which only strengthened her resolve. I just hope you are safe. I don't know why, but right now, even though we are in two different places, while you are sinking into the depths of hell, I feel closer to you than ever before. I truly want us to become good friends when we meet again. So please, come back safely. Return home. Return to Nottingham Manor. After finishing changing the pilot's bandages, Madelyn heard Isabel calling her. Madelyn, he sent you a letter. She hurriedly pushed her out of the room, saying, you should rest. As soon as Madelyn stepped outside, she quickly opened the letter. Her cheeks had turned red without her realizing, and she began to read it attentively. However, just a few seconds later, her face suddenly darkened, and tears started streaming down onto the letter. Summer of 1916. He sent me a letter from the Somme River, France. Thinking back now, it's astonishing that this letter even reached me, as if by some miracle. Everyone, moved to the third trench. After giving the order, Ian quickly refocused on his aim. Suddenly, a grenade flew toward them. A hand grabbed his shirt and pulled him back. Boom! The grenade exploded, and its shockwave sent everyone flying backward. Ian collapsed to the ground in pain. "Lieutenant, are you okay, Lieutenant?" The shockwave had affected his ears, making him unable to hear for a brief moment. When he regained his senses, Ian's eyes widened in shock at the sight of the one who had pulled him back. His best friend was lying in a pool of blood, muttering his final words. "Why did you save me?" The ringing in his ears continued to echo as his friend lay motionless before him. To Lady Renfield, "I ask that you refrain from sending me any more letters. I don't think I will survive to return, so you should not keep in touch with someone whose life or death is uncertain. Furthermore, every time I feel that my life is meaningless, your letters give me hope, but life is cruel, and I can no longer endure it. So please, do not give me any more false hope." Madelyn trembled, her inner thoughts echoing, "I'm so stubborn, Ian. In truth, my feelings for you are no longer just sympathy." Ian has faced life and death many times. Will he make it back safely to Madelyn's side? How patient will Madelyn remain with Ian? Don't forget to like and subscribe to follow the next episode of the manhwa The Redemption of Earl Nottingham.